And I made a motion. I said, you know, I made a fist. I said, I can grab you right now. I made him see that fist. I said, you know, I can take you out right now. But then, like I said, everything just stopped. I don't know, just quiet. But you know, I did see the fear in his eyes. I did mention my mother's name. I mentioned Sophie Wassaykeesic. I mentioned the other lady, Barbara. I mentioned my oldest brother. I mentioned my brother Alan. I mentioned my brother Tom. I made that list of all my family members. I made sure that he heard those names. I made sure he heard the other name, the other lady, and her kids. I seen the look in his eyes, the realization that this talk was not just a normal visit. You ever see the look of fear in a person's eyes when it starts to dawn on him that this situation that he's in is not what it's,
Mm-hmm.
And I've experienced that look myself. I've been attacked before. I've been beaten before. Life has been rough. I've had that look. I know that look. I've seen it in other people because I've beaten people too, Because like I said, I've been in gang fights, I've been in shootings, because life has, that's how life turned out for me. And I know that look. And so when I started mentioning all this to him in the hospital room just a couple of days ago, I seen that look in his eye. And he's 88 years old, and he attempted to get out of bed, to get into the hallway where the nurses were. For me, that was proof. To me, that was evidence. To me, that's exactly what, the guilt of this, what he did. When he attempted to get out of that bed, try to get out of that room, and that look in his eyes said it all. I said, for me, that was the point I was looking for. And then I had to calm him down, and so I pulled away. I sat back down, and started to try to make him feel comfortable again, right? That's what I did. And he came back on the bed, relaxed, and I started talking to him again.
Did that surprise you?
What?
That you calmed right down like that? With all that anger for all that time? And you just...
Well, it's the whole act in itself, kind of, when I think about it, like I said, this is the moment I've been waiting for 40 years, Like I said, I was scared when I walked in. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. This guy I've been looking for 40 years. I've been dreaming for this moment, man. I want to get this guy. I want to do this. I want to do this. And then everything just drops out. Everything goes quiet. Everything, all of a sudden, the final moment was when I looked into his eyes and I told him, okay, it's over. It's done. No more. I said, don't forget, I used to carry this guy's name in my mind, in my heart, wherever. For 40 years I've been carrying this guy's name. I'm tired of that. I don't want to do that no more. I've had enough. That's what I was trying to tell him. I said, no more. It's over. It's done. You're going to die, And elders and other people are telling me, this guy's going to die. Let the Creator, and Christians, they say, let God take care of him, Elders say, let the Creator take care of him now, because he's going to have to, So that's what I had to keep in mind when I was in that room, And I can hear the elders talking. Leave him alone, Let the Creator take care of him. And I remember that lady crying in front of me and begging me not to do nothing. And these are the thoughts that are going through my head. But also the other thoughts are going through my head too. What he did to my family, my brothers, who are still paying the price, And yet, this guy gets to lay in a hospital room, taken care of by nurses, doctors, and everything. He's getting well taken care of. Not only in the hospital, but in the community that he was in, elders program. He qualifies for all that. Gets taken care of 3 meals a day. House, shack, whatever he's got up there. He's very well taken care of. My mother's been in the ground 39, 40 years now. Barbara's been in the ground, 40 years. And the family paid the price.
Do you think that, with the information you now have, do you think that the authorities, the police, will step in and do anything, or does it matter?
Well, yeah, it does matter. Just because this guy's dying doesn't mean it's over. we're going to be feeling the impact of what this guy did for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought about it. I thought about that very point for quite a while. Is it over? If this guy dies, is it over? For myself, I probably won't be as active as I used to be. I probably won't be doing any more blockades or train blockades, road blockades, whatever. But I will still be active on my mother's case, because you know why? A lot of people knew what happened. A lot of people knew what this guy did. His family knows what this guy did. So how come they're not guilty, just as guilty as the guy who did the crime? For keeping that evidence for 40 years, knowing what this guy did.
And it's probably not an isolated case, Gary, because there's other instances with murdered and missing women where people in the communities know. People in the region know. And it's not just...
James, because of looking into my mother's case, I've made a lot of progress. Like I said, I've done train blockades, road blockades. My interviews have been translated into 130 countries. I've talked with Al Jazeera. I'm in touch with the Toronto Star, Peter Edwards. I'm in touch with CBC, Jodie Porter, as the show As It Happens, I'm in touch with all these people. I've talked to a lot of people, and I know it's not an isolated case. I know.
And through all of this, for our viewers who don't know, when I connected with Gary, it was several years ago doing a furniture drive for your home community. And you've done another furniture drive for your home community. And you're doing work now in Toronto to help First Nation communities across Northern Ontario and eventually across the country. So it's been a journey with pain and with anger and with hope, from what I see.
Yeah, well, like I said, sometimes I have to give, I give credit where credit is due. I didn't get to this point, like I said, the internet and everything else, and now I'm starting to get labeled as an advocate or an activist. That's not what I started out to do. I started out just wanted to deal with my mother's case, But because of looking into my mother's case now, like you mentioned, the furniture drive, I've gotten involved with Occupy. I've gone into other residential schools for looking for bones for kids that went missing during the residential school years. I've taken part in train blockades, road blockades, trying to get the word out. I've talked to universities, major universities, University of Toronto, York University, George Brown College, other colleges. I've learned a lot. I've learned my own history. And it's all because of what? Looking into my mother's case. If I hadn't looked into my mother's case, none of this would be happening. The diabetes epidemic that we have now, because of looking into my mother's case, we're gonna start trying to combat diabetes in this region. We're gonna start greenhouses. I've come into contact with groups from BC to New Brunswick, right across the country. Groups that want to come into First Nations communities, start setting up greenhouses. And with the diabetes, with the diabetes epidemic, I've been able to raise the awareness of the lack of dialysis machines. I got 4 of them now. And to think that hospitals in certain towns only have 1 dialysis, I got 4 of them now. All because what? Looking into my mother's case.
Mm-hmm. You've built maybe a living legacy of your mother, through all your journey.
I've always mentioned my mother's case.
Yeah.
And you know what? I didn't even know my mother. I don't even have a picture of her. I don't even know who she was. But I know I had a mother. I remember, I just have a glimpse of her, right?
Mm-hmm.
The few times I was able to spend time with her. And never really knew her. But this fight that I took on she was my mother. And through that, I've been able to kind of come to terms with the fact of losing a mother. Never got to say, mommy, never got to say, all of that. Mother's Day, quiet. But because of all this, and the way it's turning out, and the progress we've made, done quite a bit,
Through all of this, Gary, I can probably honestly say that your mother will be looking down from you and saying, I'm proud of my son. And your story is inspiring. And I thank you for sharing.
Thank you. And like I said, we're gonna be posting that episode that we have going into the hospital, and we're gonna try to explain it, the trip into the hospital and confronting the guy. I'll be posting that up on the internet real soon. Thank you. You're good.
James in the Net News Ledger Newsroom with Gary Wassaykeesic, and a story of horrible to hope, to horrible to hope, and more. Thank you for listening.
You're rich.